Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in this series, we have implemented a lot of feature into it. We have implemented the CRUD operations, we have implemented the validation thing, we have implemented the file handling part, we have also done the pagination sorting, all these stuffs. And currently the API that we have built in the movie controller, all these are working completely fine, right? So the next step into our series is the integration of security into it. So securing an API is important. The authentication and authorization part. So authentication is basically to verify the identity, right? Whether the person who is trying to authenticate, who is trying to enter into the system has the right credentials or not. And authorization is about permissions and roles, that what are the resources that he is allowed to access and what are the roles or permissions that he doesn't have, right? So there may be some users which have the permission to just fetch the movies, okay, or just add the movies, but that person may not have the access to update or delete the movies, right? Now when we are dealing with security, there are two things I would like to specify, the two approaches which are followed. Okay. The first is to integrate the security with the beginning of the project. Okay. And second is that we are going to do is to integrate the security after a certain point, right? So the recommended approach, or you can say what the Spring team also says, that is you should integrate your security part within the starting of your project only. So why we have not taken that approach? The reason is this is a series where I wanted to explain various fundamentals of various things, right? Within the scope of the project that we have taken, I wanted to explain various concepts. So I don't want to go into the intricate details of security at first, because if you talk about Spring security or security in general also, it's a very vast and complicated thing. Okay. It's a very bigger thing to deep dive into. And that's why I left security from start. Okay. But now we are going to integrate it. But going forward, if we develop any new project, then our approach will be to start with the security only, because that is most important to taken care of. So that from start only we are making sure that our APIs are secured, and the authentication and authorization we are maintaining along the way. So that makes more better sense, right? And this is also officially recommended by Spring team. Coming to the part of what type of security we are going to implement here. So of course, Spring Security provides various types of security. We can have just a basic username and password level security. Just enter the username and password, and just with that credentials we can access the resource. And there are many types of security, but here we are going to use the JWT. Now JWT we are going to use because it is widely used in the industry also. So that would be much helpful when you will be working in your job. So that is industry first thing. And second is JWT has many advantages over other security implementations. So first one is that it is very scalable. Okay. So if you use other forms of security, you have to somehow maintain the session of a user. Okay. So that you can keep the user details, and while keeping the user detail, you can means wherever you have to check the authorization of the user or any detail you want to fetch, you can do that, right? So maintaining a session is an expensive thing, but using JWT you can skip that maintaining the sessions, because JWT whole process is stateless. Okay. So that is more scalable to do. And in case of when there are a very high request rate for an application, then not maintaining a session and doing via JWT makes the application more efficient and faster. Second is JWT has this token thing. Okay. Now this token thing has all the information of the user and you can also customize it also. So you can put some extra information into this token, you can customize it. It is transmitted over the HTTP protocol, so it is secure from that perspective also. So considering all the factors, JWT is most used, most scalable, flexible, customizable. Okay, so that's why we are going to use JWT into it. But now let's understand the basic flow of JWT. Okay, so and before that, this is the website, actually the official website where you can learn about JWT if you want. So it says that JSON Web Tokens, the full form of JWT is JSON Web Tokens, are an open industry standard RFC 7519 method for representing claims securely between two parties. So if you want to exchange the data, if you want to authenticate or authorize the user, this is the way to do so. So since it is open and an industry standard also, so it can be implemented across different frameworks and different languages also. It is not restricted to Spring Security or Java. You can use any framework. Every framework has its own way to implement the JWT security. Okay, so it allows, now this website just tells you, gives a fundamental information about the JWT. Okay, so basically it contains, this is how the token looks like, and if when it is decoded, then it has a header which contains the algorithm and type. It has a payload, basically the information, and verify signature. So these are all how the JWT is comprised of. Okay, so we'll see this later when we'll understand more when we are going to do implementation. Here, from here, you can read it also that JSON Web Token is an open standard that defines a compact and self-contained way for securely transmitting information between parties as a JSON object. So since it is transmitted in the form of JSON object, so this is also one most important thing why JWT is used. Why? Because in whenever we talk about RESTful web services, the information exchange is in the form of JSON. So if within the security implementation everything is used in this format, then it is absolutely a win, right? So this information can be verified and trusted because it is digitally signed. Okay, so JWTs can be signed using a secret or a public private key pair using RSA. So there are various ways to implement JWTs or various ways to sign the JWTs. So one way is to use a secret key, which we will be seeing, and there is another way of using a public private key using RSA, which is what even Spring Security itself provides the implementation of it, which we will discuss about in some other video. Okay, in a complete different video from this, but we will discuss both approaches. One approach is using the external libraries, the official external libraries, which allows us to do the JWT implementation. And second is to use the Spring dependencies for the implementation of JWT out of the box. It provides the implementation. Okay. It's next is when should you use JSON Web Tokens? So it is saying two ways: authorization purposes. So once the user is logged in, then in every request it has to send its token. It does not have to send again and again the credentials. It can send tokens, and using that token, in that token only, all the information will be there. The about the user, credentials, about its roles, permissions, everything. So that is more useful, right? And second is for information exchange. So if two parties or two web services want to exchange information between them in a secure manner, JSON Web Token is highly preferred. Okay, so you can read this whole documentation, and it is very much useful to get you understanding of the JWT related things. Okay, now let's understand the flow with respect to the Spring Boot security. Okay, so here is a flow diagram that I have made for better understanding of how things are done. So here is a client. This client can be either postman, which is in our case it will be postman only, and it can be a web client. You can make your own front end if you want. So client can be anything, right? Which sends a request, right? Now at first it sends a request to access resource. Now currently in our project, if you see, there is no dependency of Spring Security. So if you go to here pom.xml, we have no Spring Security dependency. So in this architecture, this Spring Security thing is missing. So currently Postman is able to directly interact with this REST services, right? So that we have seen. But after we put the dependency, the Spring Security comes in between and it make every endpoint as secure. Okay. So if we just request on a particular endpoint for accessing the resource or data, then it will reject it and say unauthorized request. Now second time, if we again request with credentials, with proper valid credentials, then it will verify the credential and it will issue access and refresh tokens. Now the access token and refresh token are two different concepts. Access token is used for accessing the request or accessing the resources, I would say, resources or data. So if you want to access a particular resources or data, so you have to send an access token, and then the Spring Security will see if the access token is valid, and if it is valid, it will provide the access to that particular resources or data. Okay, so on the first request, you are allowed to access the resources based on your credentials. Okay, it verifies the credentials and issues access and refresh token. Now when this access and refresh token are issued, this can be saved by the client in the cookies or in the local storage, okay, for further requests, right? So once on the first request, verification of credentials, then issuing of access and refresh tokens, and then it authenticate users and allow access based on roles and permissions. So what role you have or permission you have, and the resource or data you are trying to access, is it authorized to you? If it is, you are able to authorize it, right? Now you may be firing one endpoint when you are passing the credentials here, right? But you want to fire another endpoint. So now if you want to fire another endpoint, you don't need to pass your credentials, username or password. You can just pass your access token, and if that access token is valid, the Spring Security will validate that and it will allow you to access the data. Okay, now valid means expiration. Okay, if your access token is expired or not. So those are inbuilt into the claims, or you can say inbuilt into the JSON web token. Okay, that whether the token is expired or non-expired. If it is not expired and it is valid, then it is allowed. If it is valid but expired, then it is not allowed. So in the case when access token is expired, okay, there are two options: either re-authenticate the user or issue a new access token. Now there are different situations in which these two approaches work. In some situations re-authentication works, in some situations the second one is to provide a new access token works. So to get a new access token, you need a refresh token. So what is the difference between access and refresh token? Let's understand that. So access token, if there is a refresh token in play, okay, in the whole architecture, if you are using the concept of refresh tokens, then how it is done is access token have the short lifetime or short expiration time. Okay, it may be for 15 minutes or 1 hour or 2 hour, right? Something like that. Refresh token have a large lifespan, so you can keep those refresh token in your cookies or in your database, and whenever you are trying to access resources using your access token, and if the server says your request is unauthorized, then in that case what you can do is you can pass the refresh token and get the new access token, and then it will allow you to access the resources and data. Okay, so this is the use of refresh tokens. Now the benefit of first thing is that you don't need the whole complexity of refresh token if you are just relying on re-authentication of users. But in case if you wish to put the users again and again re-authenticating, then the user experience may go down. Okay, so in that case refresh tokens are more better approach to follow, and this approach of refresh token is mostly followed in Auth 2 systems. Okay, if a third party needs access to resources of third parties from another service, suppose you are accessing a website, okay, and you need to upload a photo from Google Drive. So that website needs access to resources of Google Drive. So Google Drive will give an access token and refresh token to that website. Access token will be for just 15 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on how Google is implementing its access token related thing. And once it expires, the refresh token can be used by that website for generating a new access token. Okay. In those cases, access token and refresh tokens are used. But for general purposes, you can either use access token only. Their lifetime can be not too short but not too big also, or you can use access token and refresh token both. So in our project we will be using the both access token and refresh token so that you get an idea of how it is done, and we will see how all the things are implemented. Now one more question you may have, that what if refresh token also get expires, then how we will get another access token, right? So in case if your refresh token is expired, then you have to re-authenticate yourself with your username and password again. Okay, so again if you re-authenticate, then Spring Security will verify your credentials and it will again give you access token and refresh tokens. So access token can be short lifespan, but refresh token has to be a significantly bigger lifespan so that you can there is no need to again and again re-authenticate. Okay, second usage of using the combination of this access token and refresh token is that the lifespan of access token is kept short because it gives a limited window in case their hacker tries to hack your system to or try or gets an access to the your access token. So there can be a case where your access token is the details of the access token is in the hands of your hacker and your information can get misused. Okay, so in that case, to prevent the hacker to do less or a cyber criminal to do less damage, the window of opportunity should be lesser. So that is the reason why access token lifespan is kept short. Now there can again be a scenario in which you can ask that what if refresh token also gets stolen, right? So generally what happens in the industry is that the resource server or any authorization server which is issuing the refresh token is itself, the security of such server itself is very much high. Okay, so that, and as well as the refresh token wherever it is kept in an HTTP only cookie. Okay, so that it is very well protected, because refresh token needs to be actually very well protected more than access tokens, right? Because using refresh token you can generate another access token and can access your resources, right? So this is the fundamental thing. If you go deep dive into it, you will see the lot of complicated things and it's a very complex details that you will you have to deep dive into it. But here we will deep dive a bit of complexity into our project, but not so much that it confuses you too much, rather than understanding the whole concept of Spring Security. Okay, so I hope you have understood the concept. If you have not understood, post in the comments on any questions you have not understood. I will try to answer those questions. Okay, so this was all about the JWT security and the flow of how things will work, how these tokens are interchanged, and how tokens are used for authentication and authorization. Okay, any questions, just post in comment. I'll try to answer that. Right, so that's all for this video. From the next one, we are going to actually implement this JWT authentication and authorization and integrate the Spring security into it. Okay, so that's all for this video. I hope you have liked this explanation, and if you like it, please press the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new here, and for more such content. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye bye.